What's going on YouTube? This is Jim Afanis, aka vypermajik, and today I wanted to talk briefly with you guys about Chalice Dungeons in Bloodborne. In the background, I'm actually throwing down on one of the first Chalice Dungeons that I made. Now, the cool thing about Chalice Dungeons is that they are completely optional, and more importantly, completely procedural. In other words, no two are ever going to be the same. So, the developers put together a set of assets, I guess, that the game will just randomly draw upon. And you'll just kind of explore through these little maps, and there's new enemies to fight, there's new traps to uncover. I will admit, though, as I've gone through about 4 of these now, I am noticing that a lot of the traps and stuff are repeating over and over, so I'm kind of aware of what is going on, but I'll tell you what, it's just a nice change of pace from the regular game. And that's not to take away from the main story at all. I'm actually not that far into it, but I'm still finding plenty of diversity in both enemy types and in, just environments and areas and that sort of thing. And it does keep the game fresh and new, but hey, to give us more content, why not? Chalice Dungeons can be created on your own. You have to actually advance through some of the main story in order to obtain the right equipment. The first one that most of us will probably come across is the Blood-Starved Beast, and he will give you an item that will allow you to begin creating Chalice Dungeons. Now, I am no expert by means, so if you're looking for the definitive guide on how to create the ultimate Chalice Dungeon with all the modifiers and all the map sets and all that kind of stuff, I'm not the guy for that. I don't know much of that. What I do know is that the it's pretty simple to put together, and you can create your own. You can share them with your friends. I've actually checked out one of my friends' dungeons, and again, it's not that they really made it. It's just that they created it randomly. It's not like you get to sit there, and this isn't a map editor or anything where you get to piece together, oh, I want this, I want this trap in this location or anything. This isn't like a Mario Maker type game, which would actually be pretty neat if they decided to go that route, but it isn't really required because, again, just being optional, it's just kind of luck of the draw, and you just kind of go out there and see what's going on. So it's these little pockets of just altered reality, I guess, where you're just going to encounter some different things. Now, the real cool thing about Chalice Dungeons, at least in my opinion, is that they do have the opportunity to award you with new armor and weapon sets that you would not normally find in the single-player experience. So if you're really a true collector and you want to go out and get some of these really cool looking armor sets, and you want to get some different weapons, and not only weapons that are new, but actually re-rolls of weapons that are already in the game but with different blood gem slots, so you can actually enhance your weapon differently than you could in the single player game, that's actually really cool. So the weapon I'm using now, for example, I've already found it. I bought it in the game, and then I went ahead and found it in the Chalice Dungeon, but it had different slots, and the slots actually gave me the option to put in better blood gems, and it's actually a lot stronger than the kind of quote unquote stock weapon that I would have picked up in the single player experience. So that's a kind of cool reward, and I haven't got any of the unique armor sets or anything yet. I keep playing through these dungeons, and you can beef up the difficulty if you want to make them a little bit harder. The enemies do hit harder. There's different varieties of enemies that you would encounter in this single player experience, and it's these kind of just going above and beyond reward maps, kind of almost, to just diversify your gameplay. There are different map sets or different tile sets, so like the actual environment will look very different. Again, this being one of the early ones that I did, most people are going to start off with something like what I have, and then later on, as you grind through the main story, and yes, I did say grind through because it is a challenging game, you'll eventually encounter some other bosses that will drop different chalices that will allow you to create additional dungeons. And this is really a self-feeding system in terms of the rewards that you get, because a lot of times your reward will just be basically the materials you need to create a new dungeon. So it's not like you're not going to get anything. It's just sometimes your reward may be nothing more than some blood echoes. But I am really enjoying it. I do hope that other developers take a look at this concept and try to apply it to their games. I know that Diablo is probably the most notorious of, in a good way, of making procedurally generated maps. And no two playthroughs are ever the same, and maps are completely randomly generated when you play in a party, so it kind of keeps the exploration fresh. That said, there are certain set pieces and assets in Diablo and here as well that you will encounter again and again. I can't count the number of times that I've been in a room very similar to this, where I go down the stairs, there's a boss right there, like a mini boss, and then there's a treasure chest right there. So there are a lot of duplicate assets that will repeat themselves over and over again, and that does kind of take away from the excitement of it. But then again, being additional, purely optional content, I can't be too much of a critic. Nothing else, it's a nice place to go and grind out some blood echoes if you're looking for something different to do. And that's primarily how I've been using them. At the end of each area, there'll always be a huge boss you have to fight, and those are pretty challenging, especially for a newer player who's still kind of understanding the core mechanics of the game, to be thrown into some of these more aggressive boss fights. But if nothing else, I think it'll make you a better player, because you'll be able to kind of get your feet wet in terms of boss fights. And after a while, when you go through this, the main bosses you'll fight in the actual story won't seem as difficult, because you'll be a little more hardened. So that's actually a nice thing too, if you're interested in doing it. Anyways, let me know what your favorite Chalice Dungeon layout is. Let me know what you think about it. Is it cool? Is it lame? I think it's something really cool. As always, comment, rate, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think. And until next time, I and my bloody ass hunter will see you guys on the other side.